Hello freshmen, this is Mr. Palomo with your last EOC review number 5, and it'll be covering reporting category number 5, which is covering exponential functions and equations. So the first TEK is 8.9D, and let's start with this question. What is the value of the y-intercept for the graph of h of x? So notice that this right here is an exponential function because the x is in the exponent. So it is in the format of y is equal to a times b to the power of x. If you remember that equation, you should also remember that a represents your y-intercept. So the answer here is 29. So the answer that we would bubble in is 29. And of course, that answer as an ordered pair will be 0, 29. Just for future reference. If you forgot that the a value represents the y-intercept, the initial amount, you could also graph your function h of x and then look at the table on your calculator. So let me show you that. I'm going to graph h of x. (5.2 to the power of x). So here is my graph. Notice that you're not able to see the y-intercept. Even if you zoom out, that won't really help you because you won't know the value. So press second graph. We're going to look at the table. Don't forget to get the y-intercept. You look for whenever the x is 0. So as you can see, whenever x is 0, the y value is 29. That represents your y-intercept. Go ahead and try the following question. In order to get the x-intercept, if you guys remember exponential growth or decay functions, you should remember that the growth looks like this and the decay looks like this. Also, you have to remember that both of these have a HA or horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. That's why they do not cross or touch the x-axis, so F is not correct. So it will not have a x-intercept if it does not have a transformation, because remember, if you add a +1, let's make that a -1. If you add a -1 here, it will shift your graph down 1 unit and that will cross the x-axis. But since it doesn't have a transformation, it will look something like this because it is exponential decay, because the 0.25 is a decay factor and it's less than 1. Now the coordinates of the y-intercept are 0, 8. As you can see, the y-intercept or the a value is 8. So that right there is correct. So our answer is G. But let's look at the remaining answer choices just to review. The equation of the asymptote is that x equals 0. So remember, x equals 0 is a vertical line crossing the x at 0, which is this pink dotted line, and that's not correct. Earlier I mentioned that the horizontal asymptote will be at y equals 0. Because it crosses the y-axis and not the x-axis. So H is not it. The graph includes the point 2, 1. So you can graph this, look at the table, and you'll see that this point is not part of that equation. So the answer is G. For the following question, go ahead and try it. Which graph best represents y equals 10 times 0.85 to the power of x? So let's go ahead and discuss the graph. This right here represents exponential decay because the b value is less than 1. So therefore the graph should be decreasing. So let's eliminate some answer choices based off of that. A is increasing, F is not it. H is also increasing, H is not it. So our answer is either G or J. Notice that the y-intercept is 10. G has a y-intercept of 10. It looks like J does as well. So that means we are going to have to graph it and check some points. Graph of G has the point 3, 6. So let's see if G is the answer. I'm going to graph the following. I'm going to see if the table has the point 3, 6 in it. So 10.85x. Here is the graph. If I zoom out, it looks a little bit like G. So to make sure, let's look for 3.3 3,6 on the table. So second graph, 3,6 is right here. It's an estimation, so that right there is correct. This graph does not have the point 3,6 anywhere close to it. That's how you know it is not J. This question covers TEK 8.9c. The table represents some point on the graph of an exponential function. Which function represents the same relationship? So basically, which equation will give you the following table? Before we graph every single answer choice and look at the table, see which one matches, let's eliminate some answer choices. Notice that the point here, 0, 18, represents the y-intercept. And I know that because every time I have the y-intercept, the x value is always 0. And since we are talking about exponential, that means the a value must be 18. So let's look at our answer choices and eliminate some of them. Therefore, our answer cannot be B or D. So now let me go ahead and graph B, and let me see if that is our solution. I'm going to see if it gives me this table right here. So 18, 6 over 5 to the power of x. I'm gonna look at the table. So first point I'm gonna look for is -2, 12.5. -2, 12.5 is there. Let me look for one more point. 2, 25.92. 2, 25.92. Therefore, this right here is B. This question covers TEK 8.9a. The graph of the exponential function is shown on the grid. Based on the graph, which statement is true? So we are looking for the statement that is true. The range is the set of real numbers less than 0. So basically this. B is saying the domain is all real numbers, is the set of all real numbers greater than 4. Since its domain is talking about the x and it says greater than -4. C is saying the range is the set of all real numbers greater than 0. The domain is saying, D is saying the domain is a set of all real numbers that are less than -4. So let's go ahead and find the domain and the range of this graph. Let's see which one is true, which one is false. Domain is x values from left to right. If this graph goes to the left, the x values are approaching -infinity. As the graph goes to the right, the x values are going to the right, approaching +infinity. Therefore, the domain for this graph is all real numbers. So that's how I know B and D are not correct. So just like quadratic functions, exponential growth and decay will always have a domain of all real numbers if they have the 2 arrows at the end. Sometimes you might just get a segment. So that's why we eliminated B and D. Now let's go ahead and find the range to see which answer choice is correct out of A or C. The range is y values from bottom to top. Notice that the graph goes flat here. It is approaching the HA at y equals 0. So the lowest y value here is 0, and then the graph goes up, approaching infinity. So in other words, the range is everything from 0 on up. That's why the range is C, the set of all real numbers greater than 0. And remember, there is no equal to because of the HA. You approach it, but never touch 0. Go ahead and try the following question. This question covers TEK 8.9c. There are 1,024 players in a tennis tournament. In each round, half of the players are eliminated. Which function can be used to find the number of players remaining in the tournament at the end of X rounds? So the initial amount is 1,024 players. The rate, half of the players are eliminated, so that's our decay factor to the power of x, making our answer B. Go ahead and try the following question. Go ahead and try the following question. This question covers TEK 8.9b. So a bank account earning an annual compound interest was opened and no additional deposits or withdrawals were made after the initial deposit. The balance in the account after X years can be modeled by B of X. Which statement is the best interpretation of the value of one of the values in this function? The initial balance on the account decreased at a rate of 97.5. So let's look at the B. Notice that the B is 1.025, which means it is growth. So the amount of money is growing. Therefore, that's why F is not correct, because it's not decreasing. The balance in the account increases at a rate of 2.5%. So let's go ahead and look at the growth factor again. So to get that number, you did 1 plus some number, and that's how you got 1.025. So obviously to get it, you just subtract 1.025 minus 1 and you get 0.025. And if you move your decimal 2 spaces to the right, you get 2.5. So the amount of money increased at a rate of 2.5% per year, making your answer G. Let's continue looking at H and J. The initial balance of the account was 1,025. Remember, the initial amount is represented by the y-intercept, which is the A, and the initial balance was $850. That's why H is not correct. The balance in the account at the end of 1 year is $850. So to figure out the ending balance after 1 year, you will have to substitute 1 for X. B of 1 is equal to $850 times 1.025 to the power of 1. So let me put that in the calculator. Let me see how much money I have after 1 year. I'll have $871.25. J is not saying that amount, so that's why J is not correct.